Good. Okay, everybody, I think we're going to get started. Thank you so much for being here. So this is the state of the school address, panel, as I call this here. I'm Elizabeth Majerus. Many of you have already heard a little bit about my background, but for those of you who haven't, this is my 24th year. In the fall of 1999, I taught English for 20 years, was executive teacher or department chair of the English department for 18 of those 20 years. And this is my 4th year in directors. Director. I am from Chicago and Wisconsin, had a kind of dual growing up childhood. Went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison for undergrad, got my and I love Tiouririne. Really, I feel like it's been a real blessing to make it my home. But I often tell people I'm here because of you. When I came to uni, I come out of grad school. I'm going to make commitments to school. I'm we're going to be here for 5 years. So it really is such a wonderful place to be here. I'm very glad to be part of this community, and so honored and proud to be in a leadership position. Auspicious time, our 100-year anniversary. Speaking of the congregation, thank you so much to everybody who's speaking, hearing, who's played a role at all. This is such a huge undertaking, and it took a lot of people to pull it off. Especially thank you to our advancement team, Janet Cronky, Barowski, and Christine Pearson. They really. Okay, so we're going to have a panel here of several people and different areas of expertise. Not all the expertise at uni is represented here, so there may be time for us to say something about that is, and then we send you on to someone else. But we're going to try. It's also hard to cover everything in my time. We'll do the best we can. So I'm going to start just generally talking about the students. Okay, so first of all, I just want to just touch on the state of the school generally and say that the state of uni is thriving. We're really going to uni is always a wonderful place to be, and that's been true every year. But I don't think I've ever been in an era where there's more exciting things going on, feeling more positive, there's more of a sense of shared vision. And this is in spite of the fact that we've been dealing with the pandemic, created incredible challenges for us. And I just want to say our faculty and staff has risen to that challenge in so many amazing ways. I think we really provided our students with tremendous education, a variety of different modes during the pandemic. I'm very proud of how, so including this having to deal with our largest spike ever right before the century celebration. So I just basically uni is thriving, and I think it's really recognizable as the place you all know and love from there. There's a real kind of consistency, even though things change, and we hear stories about kind of the wild 70s and the days that teachers absent, started note on the door and said, "Go do whatever you do." And then things have gotten more, more sort of rule-based, and there's a little more oversight, and it looks maybe more like a traditional school than when some earlier folks were here. But there's a spirit to uni that maintains. When I talk to people who went to uni, whatever era they were, a shared experience, and I think that's. We still have beloved traditions like madrigals, howdy hop, unlocked lockers. We do have a box of them. So we offer them to students, and really very few students. We have handprints during graduation season, which has been going on since the 70s. And most importantly, a close and generally supportive cohort of kids every year who get excited about the stuff they're passionate about, hear each other on, build strong friendships based on mutual interests and respect. Uni also still tends to be a place where weird kids can come and find a place to call home. I think it's a place where kids can be themselves to a degree that's unusual in most high schools. It's still high school, it's still adolescent, there are still kids who are figuring out who they are, or maybe not sharing themselves 100%, because it's just that phase of life. Every class is different, but I think there is really a consistent quality to uni where kids come and they're like, oh, I can just be the one. Most people are nice. I can feel like I have a friend, and there's a real respect for differences and for different paths and passions and habits. I think that's really wonderful. Also here, as we continue to grow into the 21st century, I think there's been a lot of new things happening that we can all be proud of, and all of us are going to touch. And so we'll cover that throughout this panel. Okay, so I'm going to start by talking a little bit about UNI's relationship with the university. I think most of you probably know that UNI's history was as a traditional lab school. And in 1983, that relationship between the University of Illinois College of Education and UNI ceased. The College of Ed decided to close UNI, not because it wasn't a great place for good things going on. They had a budget crisis. And everybody knows the story of the university sweeping in, Nobel Prize winning alum kind of helping to save the day, along with some folks in administrative positions to help sweep in. And so at that point, we shifted and became, instead of part of the College of Ed, part of the provost office. So now since then we answered the provost office. This has created a lot of interesting aspects. It's part of what has helped make it unique. And sometimes I think it's great because it gives us a lot of freedom. We really are a little educational curriculum laboratory unto ourselves. And we don't answer to outside bodies for our work. We have a lot of freedom. But it can also create identity crises. It can create insecurity depending on who's in the provost office and how they're attending. And I've certainly been in different periods where there were provosts that were more actively supportive, provosts that were sort of passively supportive, provosts that were like, you're great, you don't really want to hear from you, that's the best case scenario. Best way to deal. Right now we have so much support from the provost office. Provost Andreas Pangalaris, who has recently left the University of Illinois, but I think his legacy support for you going to aim really set up some measures to help that support for you has been wonderful. And our provost liaison is in the provost office, Dr. Ami Santos, is incredibly supportive, very active. In general, the provost office is always looking out for ways to connect community, to provide us with resources, to help us connect with resources that might be useful for us, to find things when I feel like there's a lot of active support. Often we don't have things are being brought to our attention. And when we do ask, the response is very, very supportive and robust. So that is really wonderful. We also have an advisory board, which is something, and I think having an advisory board kind of solves a lot of that problem of the identity over time, or the feeling that we're kind of being looked out for by shifting over time. We basically have a board of people who are looking at communicating with you, helping find ways to keep that we have. So when that board was created, and it was the Strategic Vision Task Force group, it was one of the recommendations that we created. It was initially a governance. Ultimately, it was decided it was wiser to have an advisory. I think we were all happy to have an advisory board because it puts the faculty in the industry. And to me, that's very appropriate because we know the school, I think we know the needs of the school. And historically, the faculty has really made good choices about where it's headed. And so the advisory board is there, they do advise us, but the questions that we get from the advisory board, similar to the provost's office, tend to look more like, what can we do for you? And how can we assist you in articulating and pursuing its goals? Rather than, here's what we want you to do. We've talked about it, and here's what we do. So it's really seeking input from us, trying to understand you better, and trying to figure out how to support us, which feels really good. We have very active board members, some from the university, some from the community, uni parent, uni alum. We have our alum members with us today. Up at that role. So we really appreciate our board. Similar to the advisory board, when I have conversations about our goals moving forward, uni's future, it's really a conversation of collaboration. And I think we're lucky that a lot of the goals that we as a faculty and staff at uni have been focused on in the last decade or so, direction we've been headed really shines well with a lot of the goals and visions of the university. So the university is very focused on greater equity as a public institution. We are also very a main aspect of my leadership. Also educational innovation, experimentation, problem solving are all very also very important for us. So I'll talk a little bit about those two shared goals. First of all, equity. So when I met with Provost Panelists and we sat down to try to articulate some goals for the next 3 years, one of the big areas that we identified, which uni has been working on, is equity and inclusion. Diversity. I often focus more on equity and inclusion. We have a amount of diversity sometimes, but we haven't always done as well as we'd like in making sure that diversity is equitable, that kids all over our community know about uni, know that uni is a place for them, and feel like they can figure out how to apply, and that they have a way to show us what their gifts are, what their passions are. See all those students and identify the students who could thrive it, who could benefit from the things that we have. And then of course inclusion is incredibly important. Once those kids get there, we want to support them, we want to include them, we want them to become part of our community, we want our community to grow as a result of them being there. Not just that we try to create a space that they think would help them grow, but that the home that we have for kids changes to include the kids we have. So it's a constant process of learning, like having more kids from communities that are historically underrepresented. And you know, there's a wide variety of those groups. So the big ones are kids in the local Black, like Latinx kids, kids from lower socioeconomic status families. Those are the main kinds of underrepresented. Do better by. And also, of course, kids with disabilities in a 100-year-old building. Do better with that. So as more kids from different backgrounds come into our building, I think a big theme of mine, we see that when we serve kids from particular communities well, we serve all our kids better, right? A lot of our kids benefit from some of the supports that we put in place for particular communities. There are needs that we didn't even know existed. I think a really great example of that is the lunch program. And so in terms of our equity goals, a lot of our main equity goals have really been just bread and butter issues, right? Like think about Maslow's hierarchy. We've got to get fed and have shelter and feel secure before we can start lecture. And so, you know, uni hasn't had a lunch program. And we don't have a lunch program in here. That's been a big area of learning. I thought, well, we don't have a, that's offering free and reduced lunch for kids who qualify for it, we need to do that. And it seemed very simple to just get some lunches and give them to kids. And
Recording it.
I realized that my thinking on that is naive. You can't just put up a big table that says free lunch here and kids have it works, especially. So you have to provide lunch to everyone. That's invisible. So ultimately, I think what I'd love to see is that everything will be and we're working on making that happen. So that's the issue of funds. But what we've got now is great and much better. But one thing we learned as we were working on this, and I'm going to talk about that in a way, our coordinator actually talked to Valerie was really a differentiator. We're hard trying to do it on a volunteer basis, and it's just too important to have part of that. She studies up so quickly. Got to together and have it. So one thing we learned is that a lot of kids weren't eating lunch with their kids. A lot of kids weren't eating lunch because they have a lot of resources at home, but time and attention from parents are not among those resources. Just because you have food in the kitchen doesn't mean you're going to put it into a healthy lunch and bring it to school. You might just get a bag of chips from the vending that, or just hope that your friends brought an extra sandwich. So there's a lot of kids who aren't eating lunch for a variety of reasons. And now those kids have lunch every day. Busy parent who's maybe not home by their kid doesn't time parents and just send them lunch. Right. And some of you guys have experienced that lunch. That's good. We were able to give out some free lunches. So had that lunch yesterday, that's the lunch you're buying. Other bread and butter issues we are working on it are transportation, figuring out ways to get our kids to school. And again, this is a really important equity issue for a kid who doesn't have the privilege of getting a ride to school every morning. They have to get to uni, and they might not live in the neighborhood, have kids all over the place. So how do we help those kids get to school? But of course, again, once we're doing right by the kids who are struggling to get to school, we're doing right by the whole. Pulling up in front of our school, causing traffic on Springfield Avenue, and worst of all, putting a ton more carbon into the atmosphere than we have. We really want to do well. So there's so many win-win-win situations that will work. And so there's a lot of issues like that, but we're working on them. And more importantly, or I think most importantly, general messages is different people have different needs. It's okay to tell us what needs are. We're interested in helping meet those. And so our students have needs we don't even know about. We're trying to see those. Sometimes we need the kids to tell us, and we're trying to get the words. So like, this is a place where I can have see a program. So I mentioned the coordinator. One of the things that I'm proudest of in my time at uni is creating a role where that's covered in someone's job description, and we have somebody in a leadership position. And so we created a hack. Valerie O'Brien, Dr. O'Brien, English department is kind of been in that role so far. So that has been really nice to have her with us. I've talked a lot about the equity side of the sort of equity aspect of our goals. I think inclusion is really important too. Valerie's done a lot to bring very useful, robust training to our faculty about inclusion issues, and creating ways to communicate with students so they can give us more information about how to inclusive. So we've had a lot of shifts in our culture and assumptions that much more robust. So the second area that I wanted to focus on in terms of shared goals that we have is educational innovation. And this is the goal as it's articulated, goal creating session that I had with Provost Majerus. And as our new provost, Bill Burns, and he also met with me the first week of his office, and goals and priorities. So in terms of educational innovation, UNI's future should be one of educational innovation by experiment, risk, discovery, and self-reflection, as well as collaborating with other entities, striving to discovery, minds and visions. In all of its endeavors, prepare students for the future and support them in reaching their potential to prioritize helping students develop creative, tenacious, and responsible problem solvers. And I hope some of those phrasings of ring about with you, this kind of stuff has always been going on. But we've always also had a kind of split identity at prep school versus that. And so certainly traditional forms of educational delivery pedagogy can be useful, and I think different things work. One of the variety, so all those different kids, but doing it is much more useful as a site of it, a place where we can think, solve problems, to learn how to learn. Came up from this competition history. And so we are focusing a lot on things like problem-based projects, a lot more student-led learning, focusing on the fact that experimentation involves failure, and it's okay if something doesn't work. You have to learn. So trying to put our money where our mouth is. When we tell kids it's okay to fail, you learn from your failures. We have to talk about when we have something classroom decided work out, what happens then? And so Dr. Radnitzer is going to talk a little bit more about schedule that we had a block schedule which we created in large part, not solely, but in large part kind of based experiments in some of these more project-based and problem-based approaches. And so those are sort of the big things that I wanted to touch on in terms of school. A few smaller things I wanted to well, I guess before we move on to our educational innovation, I did want to talk a little bit about lab. I think lab mission is a really important part of it. Hopefully it's a part of why a lot of here things like risk-taking, problem-solving, developing responsive problem solvers. Part of what many students have had that is the lab mission, part of the job. But as with some of the other things I talked about, diversity and being a school that is a lab school that doesn't have a college of ed, right? Sometimes the lab mission can get fuzzy. Teachers may have some great ideas, but they're not motion. So the coordinator of that school has been around for a couple of years. The second year, third year. This is the third year. The other role that we just created this year is coordinator of that for our teachers is in that role. Yeah, instead of just everyone doing their own lab, themselves as a faculty, tell the world about it, tell each other. We've now got someone in our faculty who's paying attention to that, doing good things with that. So Lisa already started listening sessions, onto that, newsletter, the conference was on time. So that's my last piece of innovation. A few quick things to touch on before I pass the mic. I did want to let everyone know that going to a program that's here and and we'll have a team of 4 reviewers come and look at our curriculum and pedagogy, school culture, and that. This is something that every unit of the university will goes through. The fact that we were asked to do this is a great sign that we are considered unit of all of our. So if you want to talk, I'm happy to talk more about the program, but there are Okay, so this URL will take you to the 6 guiding questions that we came up with for review. We also have a 30-page document that outlines our curriculum, pedagogy, school culture, a lot of data about the school, our skills and things that are way too much going to stay. But the guiding questions are very useful. These questions and the whole self-report were created by staff members who got a lot of input. Collaborated on it. Those teachers were Emily Bonner-Henry in the math department, Rachel Van Dean, department, and Linda Sun, so she was with us last year as our RAS school psychology. And they did a great job. So that report will go to the program members in various. And so one of the questions that they are going to look at, and if you look at those questions, if you are interested in physical copy of the questions, I just have copies up here. And you raise your hand, and some has offers tests. So, but if you look at the physical questions, one of the questions that we will be asking for some feedback on is the question of the sub-freshman year. And as many of you know, in the Strategic Vision Task Force report in 2017, the Strategic Vision Task Force did make a recommendation. So when I came into the office of the director, I was tasked with kind of dealing with that. I was going to be in this office for 1 or 2 years. Work on this. And so we jumped right in and started having, as you can imagine, very difficult fall. And then the pandemic. One of the conclusions we were having, this is really hard to talk about to us. Like, we're all much too close to this issue. And it's very complicated. And we started thinking, maybe we need to get some outside. So we were looking at doing that. And so the program is really going to give some educational experts some information about our program. And we're not asking them, hey, should we eliminate sub-freshman year or should we keep it? The question is, in 2019-2020, the Women's Task Force proposed amendments to increase leadership. Yeah, no, that's the one. As we consider making changes to a grade program, public sub-freshman serves new students, affects our admission and impacts the local community. What objectives might be set for the evaluation? What kinds of inward-looking and outward-looking data should we collect? What is a realistic timeline for the reflection? What for progress. And so this is a big, thorny question, but I think some background on the question. What's very important is that when the sub-freshman year was created in the 30s, it was a combined 7th and 8th grade year. Acceleration was part of the purpose. Kids typically came in even from 6th grade. You also had in the local public schools the junior high model, where kids were in junior high for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. So students were coming to uni at a point when a lot of kids, most kids, there also weren't in private schools. Since that time, 2 things have changed. One, uni is less focused on acceleration and good stuff. And this is something that's not true of it. The idea that kids can just graduate from high school when they're 16, that's awesome. We no longer necessarily feel like that's really clean itself. Not that that's never appropriate for kids, but it's not just gay. We can help it, let's say. But so we typically tend to take kids coming out of 7th, found that come to uni from 7th grade, tend to do that. They're more emotionally mature, they're intellectually and academically more right. Sub-freshman year is no longer accelerate. So we have 7th grade instead of 6th grade. There's still some 6th grade, not enough. And in fact, there's even a word, skippy. It's one that's 6th grade called skippy. That didn't use the word. So the other thing that happened was there was a shift from the junior high model to middle school model. So now instead of going to 6th grade school and then moving in 7th grade, kids going to 5th grade, 6th grade. And what this creates is a big spotlight on the 8th grade. The 8th graders all over our community who just disappear. So they're in class in 7th grade. So there's a real spotlight. And what is Uni doing? There's just been a problem created before. And to the extent that there's bad will in the community, this does tend to be a big part of it. Because people notice when your kid's best friend leaves, they don't get to graduate with them, you notice that. When the first chair in the violin, first chair violin, suddenly the chess club's struggling, so the president of the chess club left school. There's not many students, but often these students tend to be people that notice this. And even if they're not in some important home school, you notice when your kids friends come to see them. So that's part of the problem. I think another part of the problem is it's made it really hard for us to collaborate and have positive with the local public schools. It's hard. We can't come in and say, "Could you hand out this flyer?" I want to say something about it. Maybe it's they don't want to. And one of the first things I did, I had very gracious but they definitely had some input for us. It really does create an effect. We also have schools now, and we actually run the crazy more. I think we're less worried about that because I think in terms of a uni is a public school, I think our relationship with the local is important, but it does create an effect at the school. It's kind of hard to have class 25 kids and suddenly there's 8 and they feel like that's the whole issue. So I just want to let you know it's complicated and we will have a Q&A, so we're going to wait. But I know we'll probably talk about this. I'm happy to talk to you about it. I've been up my eyeballs once during that year, so I have a lot of practice. But it is a very difficult question. I think that the important thing if we do eliminate the sub-freshman year, we're going to make positive impact. If we keep the sub-freshman year, we're going to make positive. So if we eliminate the sub-freshman year, we have to figure out what's valuable.
Yes. What we need to do, just keep it from being eliminated.
We have to wait. We really have to wait. If we have time, I mean, we will have to wait. We have each time for a minute, so I appreciate it. I want to go to that. Whatever we do, we're going to have a job of messaging and a job of how do we create positive settings, ways to create positives, whichever direction. And we probably will have and all these other notes. At this point, it really doesn't make sense because the program of these have. We're going to know so much more next spring than we know now, so it doesn't really make sense. Okay. The last few things I wanted to talk about on my report, Uni's finances. How many of you know that Uni has a debt? Okay, so we did discover a debt several years ago, and we've been paying down the debt. We made the choice to start paying the debt $100,000 a year. Every spring we pay $100,000 to the post office, and there's an agreement. We actually have a at the end of 5 years, we're going to sit down and look at that. We've gotten a lot of indications that there's openness to finding creative to look at the rest of that debt. In specific, what those creative ways are, but I don't think we're going to be paying $100,000 every spring for the next 100 years. So we are working on that. I feel a little bit for a while it just kind of sitting. You need to do something. I think indicating that we're interested in addressing this important. But that said, we are in really great shape financially. We have our funds basically come from 4 different places. We have a grant from the State Board of Education, a grant from the University of Hawaii. We do collect fee money from our students, and then we have donor funds. So our fees are not huge, it's not anywhere near tuition. They are higher than local public school fees. Most of our students pay a basic $850 per year. And then there's also, if they want to rent their school, there's that. There's also an athletic fee. Sports. But we do have a robust fee waiver program. So families can apply for a fee waiver, a partial. If they have a fee waiver, everything is paid. So they don't have to, they don't have to take sports, they don't have to take books. It's comprehensive. We also have funds helping on for language if they want to do that. The school offices. And so I can say more in Q&A if people are interested or if they're interested in talking to me individually. We also have a business manager, so I talk to her, and advanced director who's everywhere, a lot of our friends. But we're doing really well right now. We're getting more funding from the program office 4 or 5 years ago. The state board of education grant is greater than it was 5 years ago, and our advancement team is doing amazing work. They exceeded their goal by quite a bit last year. So we're really doing well financially. We have a lot of funding. It's just a matter of trying to figure out how to get stewards that and so the finances brings us to Uni's physical campus. We are working on staying in our building and expanding. We were getting some messages from the university that we shouldn't get too attached to the building. And my feeling coming in, one thing that's going to happen is anxiety for the windows are leaking. My approach is saying, let's invest in our building. The more we invest in our building, the more of a case we have. And we started to hear some different messages. One example of this is that we were invited to submit a capital proposal last year. Program in the university has a 10-year process submitting. So we submitted our first draft of capital proposal that has a plan for updating our whole building, doing basically a complete retro, expanding out of space. We are squeezed, we need more space. So we're working on keeping our people at home and expanding. So that's something that's in progress. And then finally, let me see. Oh, did I do that? Oh, I'm sliding forward. And then finally, just the next 100 years. I guess what I want to say about the next 100 years is I think we're in a really good position. And Uni is going to continue to be everything that it has been. So we're growing the opportunities to bring in more kids, get more opportunities for kids. And we're really focused on our role as innovators, experimenters, and people who create spaces for students to do their passions. So thank you very much. There will be a Q&A at the end. I'll have to answer the question. Next, we have Valerie O'Brien. She is an English teacher and our coordinator of equity and public. Thank you, Elizabeth.
So thank you all so much for being here this morning. And as Elizabeth mentioned, I'm Dr. Valerie O'Brien, teach English at Uni, and I'm the coordinator of equity and public engagement. This is my 4th year at Uni and my 3rd year in my 4th role, which began under Dr. Majerus' leadership. So in the 5 minutes or so that I have, I just want to share a few highlights of our DEI or equity-focused programming and initiatives, and also a few highlights of our public engagement. Some of this will overlap with Dr. Majerus' comments. Others will sort of preview things that Ben and Lisa are going to be talking about. Karl as well. To start us off, I just wanted to share 3 DEI goals that were identified by myself, the administration, and our admissions coordinator for the next decade or so. So the first of those goals is to make UNI's population in terms of both students and staff more closely reflect our central Illinois community. And that was a talking point that Elizabeth shared. I'll be sharing a little bit more about how we're working to achieve each of these goals in just a moment. Second, we want to expand the cultural and material supports in place at UNI, especially to support historically underrepresented groups. Although, as Elizabeth shared, those supports serve all of our students at UNI and make our school community stronger as a whole. And our third goal is to learn from our current students and families and recent graduates, older graduates, about how we can better serve our students to make our school community more inclusive, more welcoming, and just better all around. So some of the initiatives and programs that we've developed since my position came into existence in the fall of 2020 are the school lunch program. I'm curious who received one of the lunches yesterday. Okay. So that's been a major undertaking to make sure that we provide an essential resource for our school community, including both students and staff. It's been wonderful to be able to provide free lunches for any students with partial or full fee waivers, which is something that's an essential part of public schooling. Transportation assistance has been another resource that we've developed just over the past couple of years. Now, like the other public high schools in our community, we are able to provide annual bus passes for students to do that, which is very exciting. We also have developed a Path Breakers program for sub-freshmen, which seeks to ensure the success and sense of belonging of students from underrepresented backgrounds at UNI High. Students participate in the program in the summer, the week before school starts, and then we offer programming throughout the academic year as well. And the vision of the program is to provide opportunities for our students to connect with classmates, older student mentors, to connect with their teachers, and to really get comfortable with the building even before they start classes on the first day of school. In the first year, the program was funded by a significant grant from the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion as part of a program to broadly fund equity initiatives across campus and in collaboration with community organizations. The program is currently undergoing evaluation from a team of researchers in the College of Education who specialize in culturally responsive evaluation. And they've been wonderful partners for us in thinking about how we can grow the program and evaluating benefits. And we'll be receiving a report from them based on the first year or so of programming in the next few months. One of the most exciting things that I'm glad to be able to share today is that beginning this year, we now have resources to open a tutoring center. Thanks to the generous gift from Irene Strogan and the Onk family. So that it's been a resource that's been long desired at UNI, and it offers a tremendous opportunity for us as a school to provide essential academic support to our students to help them thrive, regardless of their backgrounds. And so that's very exciting. And also, as Elizabeth mentioned, we've been expanding DEI related professional development for staff to really make sure that our curriculum and our engagement with students broadly helps students feel welcome and understood. And just like they're a part of the UNI community fully, and we're always open to growing as a practice in terms of our so each of these things is a pretty significant undertaking. Right now, we're really working to cement these programs into community infrastructure to make them sustainable long term, to grow them from where they're at right now. On the horizon, the Student Advisory Group for Equity is also updating the most recent school climate survey, and that'll allow us to further inform changes at school about students' needs and how we can better support our current students. We also are broadening outreach to different areas of the community. So we're trying to be more consistently present at events like Ski Days and Jersey Road Day to make sure, as Elizabeth mentioned, that any student in the community who's interested in applying to uni has opportunity to apply, understands the process, and knows that we exist as a school, which is sometimes a challenge as a smaller school. Quickly, as I wrap up, I just want to highlight a few. There we go. A few public engagement opportunities. Public engagement is an area that both uni and the university are increasingly investing in, and so it's an area that I think you'll see pretty significant growth at uni over the next several years. So we have a number of long-standing partnerships with some educational organizations like Greenhouse, Spring Club, the Spring Initiative that Ben will be talking about in a moment. But we also are working to develop a partnership with Booker T. Washington STEM Academy. We're collaborating with the School of Chemical Sciences and BTW School to relaunch a program called the St. Elmo Grady STEM Academy, which is a very exciting opportunity to get uni students connecting with younger students in the area, as well as graduate students and undergrads from campus to really build this STEM-focused collaboration. We also have a lot of opportunities for campus collaborations, some of which are ongoing, some of which are new. So Melissa Shepline, who's in the audience, has been working for quite a while with WILL on a student podcast project. We also have new opportunities that Lisa Evans, our lab mission coordinator, is developing with the Siebel Center for Design, which is a new unit on campus. And we're getting a lot of invitations for uni students to participate in outreach through the Beckman Institute and other units on campus. They're going to be judging in the graduate level research live competition in April. So lots of wonderful opportunities are coming our way. And to segue into Dr. Radnitzer's section, another highlight of changes at uni is that our block schedule is helping us to open up these opportunities for public engagement and campus collaborations through things like field trips. I'm going to hand things over to Karl. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. So, real quick, we almost spent 2 years researching this. Teachers would go out and visit schools on the Chicago area, what block scheduling is like. Micele has been doing block scheduling for over 20 years. And this just gives you an idea of what the schedule is like. And we've been doing, as Dr. Majerus says, it gives us more opportunity for problem-based learning. And please understand, when you see this kid sitting there from 8:30 to 9:55, because I teach class 2 days a week, we don't sit them there the whole time. It's not just lecture. But it's been a great opportunity. I think we've done some surveys last year to the students and the faculty, and about 70% of the people feel it's good. They enjoy it. They like the break. And one thing that came out in that survey, which was rather surprising to me, is that they felt they had less homework to do at home. And I think the reason is, and I don't know about you, but when I go to school and I'm in a schedule like this, when I go to a study hall, I need about 10 minutes just to get my desk organized and, lay everything out. Now we've got, this opportunity here, almost 90 minutes. They can get in, sit down, get working. And so that's been a real positive to me. So we want to obviously keep going on that. And I've always said this, I was the one that's kind of leading this committee since the beginning. Sometimes this schedule is not 100% foolproof. We do realize for math and foreign language, it can be more of a challenge. because something like foreign language is great to have every day. So we are working on looking at that and possibly tweaking that a little. The other thing that I'm talking about is what's called one other thing. The reason we did Monday here is because we have a lot of holidays on Monday. So we don't disrupt the block day. On November 7th, right? Election day is 7th. So in the state of Illinois, they give us a holiday for election day, just to make sure we vote and vote. What we do then on a day like that, we'll just move the block day to a Tuesday, and this day would come over here. So we don't break up that rhythm of ever taking away a whole block day from school. That's a lot of time. So the second to the union period is something when we did have the normal schedule years ago, we would insert uni period Monday, Wednesday, Friday between 7 and 8, 6 and 7 period. And it was an opportunity to students to meet with teachers, for clubs, for college reps to come in and talk. And so this last year, and really hard to do with the COVID situation, is we moved it here at the end of the day. So that way, if kids don't have something in union period, they can go home, they can leave. But we have a lot of clubs here going on. We have math tutoring. We have a lot of the musical things going on at that time. You're not required to be there, but it's their opportunity. And then the last thing I'll talk about real quick. And I came here as a counselor. I've been 27 years in education from K to college. And I came here as a counselor, worked with Lisa, Rachel, Green. And I think one of the things was a watershed of now I'm leading into something called social emotional learning, where we start understanding some of the emotions and struggles that kids are going to. We did a video series on this. It was called A Race to Nowhere. This was written by a mother in California when a 7th grader committed suicide because she got a B on her report. So the person did some, it's a documentary. It was very good. And we brought it to our staff. We discussed it. We discussed about the pressure our kids feel when it comes to grades. And there's that balance. It's important, but it's not everything. And when it comes between grades and your mental health, we're going to always lean towards mental health. So that's been really, I think, a watershed for us. And I've had 2 children that have gone here, and we just try to make sure we try that balance. And I think the staff have taken it in over the years. And so that's been something that we have to continually work on. So I'm done with mine, and now I get to introduce my favorite counselor. She counseled me 2 months.
I'm gonna channel RuPaul. Hello, hello, hello. Nice to have everybody here. Yeah. Okay.
I got it. Don't touch it.
Oh, you're doing it. Okay. You doing it, Megan?
Trying.
There you go.
There.
Okay. When you are in the high school, please stop by 104A, 104, which is our suite. I'm really excited to be with you. I'm in my 30th year at Uni High. It's children, it's a milestone for me. And I'm looking around the room, and every time someone asks me what keeps you at Uni, I go to conferences, they say, you're still there. And I say it's you. It's my students, it's the relationships, it's the fact that I know I have a couch to crash on. Probably anywhere in the world. So it's great to see you. I'm getting emotional just looking at your faces. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm excited that our department is just honestly full of wonderful rock stars like the rest of Uni High, but my team is amazing. And we do subscribe to the developmental school model, which means social, emotional, academic, and career and college have to go hand in hand. It's all intertwined. So I just left a couple talking points up here, and I know it's kind of small. But bottom line is, we want to celebrate every magical unicorn within Uni High. That is our goal, okay? We also know that we have students who have never even understood or had a counseling center in their school. So to have a counseling office is intimidating to them. They don't know if they crossed the threshold. Is it because they're perceived as broken? Why am I going to see a counselor? So I'm excited to have Amy in the back, and Amy, you can raise your hand as I put up your pictures here. Because Amy Hahn is in the back there. She's one of our school counselors who works with last names L through Z, but she's actually working with everyone this year because Christy Diedrich, who does the first half of the alphabet, just had a baby. So she's on maternity. But if you have a chance to get on the Uni High alumni Facebook page, I tend to post or maybe overpost because I'm proud of what we do. Even at open house, we were the department that were popping popcorn in the hallways so that parents could pop in and see us, right? That was Amy's.
Seventies, eighties, and nineties.
Oh, yeah, we had all the decade music blasting on a Bluetooth speaker just to welcome families and to have them understand that student services is not an ancillary service. It has to be a fabric of the school. It has to be intertwined. It has to be just as important as the core subjects. Because as Dr. Majerus shared, if they are not feeling good about themselves, if they are feeling less than, right? If they are feeling invisible, or if they have joys and they don't feel like they're worth sharing with someone, we have a problem, right? So we're a part of an office that just wants every student and faculty to know how we can collaborate them and work together. So our office, our two school counselors were very blessed because they're licensed clinical social workers. So the fact is, even though we're employing your traditional school counseling roles, like academic advising and helping them understand how to go to ULI or Parkland, or looking at graduation checks, or Miss Amy just helped coordinate the PSAT for all the juniors in Uni Gym. And now we have to give state mandated testing. So now we have to give those, but again, for equity and access, every junior is now getting a free SAT in the April of their junior year, which is something that, again, has always been a part of every other public school. But I share that because the social work background that they bring to our department is invaluable, especially when it comes to helping students with neurodiversity needs, working on things that are in alignment with Title IX and 504s and IEPs. So Amy, I bow down to you. Christy, I bow down to you. So we just have a very wonderful department that, again, is always focused on the needs of students. Study buddies and transfer buddies are still up and running. That's one of our famous things in our office that is overseen by the counselors. And we have, again, an intern in our office that is only for a year because they partner with us and they partner with DRES, which is the Disability Resource Educational Services Center on campus. So 3 days a week, we have a pre-doctoral intern who is finishing their PhD in school psychology. That brings a layer to our office. Actually, I'm gonna quote you, Dr. Radnitzer, because when we first wanted to get this contract that allows us to do this in partnership, he was helping the director at the time understand that this was like, we have general counselors, just like you have your general family practice doctor, and now you have a specialist. And the school psychologist intern is our specialist, who now can actually do psychological evaluations, can do more supports, and even wants to work more with teachers regarding how do you differentiate your instruction and assessments if you have a student with dyslexia in your class, or if you have a student with fill in the blank, just to be able to, so that the teachers feel supported as well. Okay. And then, sorry, I keep messing up the mouse here. I apologize. Am I supposed to roll it? Oh.
Here, I got it.
Why can't we have Macintoshes? Yeah. And again, a part of the hallmark of the college counseling program at Uni is to try to be developmental. And actually, I don't think I see Steve Rayburn in the room, but Steve Rayburn was actually a faculty member who had his 9th grade students write letters home to their parents about stress factors in their life. And believe it or not, the ninth graders were all talking about college admissions. How they were so stressed that they weren't gonna get in anywhere if they got a B on their record. So college admissions and counseling them is about, again, having them understand who they are, thinking about college fit. But so much of college admissions and being at uni feels so high stakes, right? The University of Illinois is admitting at 6% for computer science.
Oh, really?
6% admissions rate. So if you're sitting in the room, I often tell our students, our alums may not get into their alma mater today, okay? To help them understand how different the landscape of admissions is. When you have schools that are admitting at 4%, we do have a very stressful community when it comes to college admissions and college outcomes. So what Dr. Majerus was going to hold up is that there's a national reply date of day 1, where seniors have to deposit if they plan on going to college. And we have students who are still dealing with grief from not getting in somewhere, or even a cloak of shame because where they're going, they're not proud of. So we work with students all the time. We try to help de-emphasize the crazy US News and World Report. We try to help them understand what it means to kind of grow and thrive somewhere. And in response to the whole wearing your college shirt day, we made those shirts in the SSO. If I sold those on Etsy. So many counselors, when I tweeted this out, well, where did you get that shirt? And we're like, Sharpies in our office. We're all gonna available for our whole staff. Well, we're gonna make them. Next slide, Megan, if you can forward that one, that would be great. Just again, to talk about how our office really loves to do public engagement. We love to kind of collaborate with the university. That picture is me with all the local counselors in town. There I am with alums. There I am visiting the University of Houston. I'm on the advisory board for Coalition and the FISC Guide. Just wonderful ways to kind of keep on the national pulse and make sure that when I work with students and work with my team, that we're giving students the best information they can get so they don't go on the internet and have people prey on their fears. Because everything out there, I mean, I'm a mom and I have test prep companies sending stuff to me in elementary school. So it's an ugly business and we're trying to keep it very student centered and very family focused, especially when you have to think about financial. Because the costs of college, as you know, are just skyrocketing. So anyway, I'm honored to be here. Amy's here. I'm gonna be here. Would love to talk with you if you wanted to chat after. Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm Ben Leff. I have been a social studies teacher here since 2012. I graduated from uni in 2001, and that puts me in a pretty good place to all right. So that puts me in a very good place to talk about the way uni has changed over time, but also like some fundamental continuities in uni. And so I wanted to talk about some of those things that are distinctively unique that are very much still going strong in 2022, and they're the same things that were happening when I was a student. So a great example of that is Abort Days, which started over 40 years ago. Yeah, this is a special week in February. I'm sorry. A special week in February where we get rid of the normal schedule and students just take whole new classes for a week. And these classes sometimes might sound traditionally academic. There's a class on climate change. But recently there were also classes on how to crochet a stuffed animal and the basics of ballroom dancing and intro to beatboxing. And these will be taught by uni teachers and staff, but also by community members, by alums, and most of all, by our students. And I'll say, when I was a subby in 1997, I taught a class in the Twilight Zone. And about 25 years later, in my cultural history elective, I was using some of those same episodes. Now, obviously that was valuable for me to get that training, but even for our students who don't end up being teachers, the task of like building your own curriculum and like having to teach it is such a valuable learning exercise. And obviously for everyone involved, it's a lot of fun. But I'll be honest, I actually haven't been very involved in Abort Days in recent years because I'm involved with another uni tradition which is going down to Mississippi. Woo! Yeah, there we go. So, many of you know the so-called habitats. This was started by legendary, by a legendary U.S. history teacher, Bill Sutton. And every year for the last 25 years, except for 2021, we have brought a group of students in February to build for Habitat for Humanity. That's been the core of the trip, but we do all these other things as well with the students. They volunteer in local nonprofits, in local schools, they go to history museums, they meet with members of the local community, and they also just think and reflect and share with each other. And that's why so often we hear students talk about this trip as one of, if not the most valuable thing they did during their time at uni. And it's so meaningful to so many students that something like 27 of them have moved down to the Mississippi Delta for at least 1 year to keep working in the service organizations down there, including a handful who've actually just made it their permanent home. Like that's where they live, that's where they set their lives, that's what they're having children. And many of these people are working for an organization called Spring Initiative. Spring Initiative was co-founded by a uni alum, Bianca Zarescu, class of 2007. And it is an after-school program working with kids down in Clarksdale. And Bill Sutton himself retired from uni, went down to Clarksdale to run the affiliate. And there's this connections here. But the fact that most kids who go on that trip don't move to Mississippi. But what we hope and what we think is true for so many people is that experience of like social responsibility and getting involved is something they take with them to whatever community they inhabit. Back to Champaign-Urbana, but also wherever they go to school and where they set up their lives. Or if they don't go to school because they want to be of service in a different way. And that's been something that's been so special. And this coming February, another group of about 20 students will go to Mississippi. The last thing I want to talk about, another uni tradition, is the handprints. So what started as a jokey fundraiser in 1972 has become a seminal rite of passage for generations of uni alums. It's one of the things that's been 50 years of the handprints. As most people in here know, the long-standing tradition is to put your handprints on the wall of the lounge at the end of your time at uni. When I graduated in 2001, space was very tight. You found every little nook or cranny where you could get your handprints. And around 2004, a very fateful decision was made that instead of putting it up on the side of the lounge, you put it out in the hallway. And this was a convention of necessities. And what that means is now our first floor hallway is filled with handprints. And the artwork has gotten increasingly complex over the years, students filling their handprint with elaborate decorations that say something about their identity or creating some like unifying motifs between them and their friends' handprints. I like to be curmudgeonly and say, back in my day, you put your hand in some paint and put it on the but they make it fancy. But in any case, however you do it, it's a way for every graduate of this school to get to leave literally their mark, like creating this physical connection between them and our school. And it's just such a uni thing that we let our kids paint all over the walls like they own the place, and we can't paint the wall for 50 years because we don't want to ruin the handprints. And it means that when I walk the hall, it's so fun, I get to look up and see the names of students that I once taught. And beyond that though, there are names that I don't know, right? But are part of this collective experience, who walked through the same halls, who sat in the same lounge. And it serves as a reminder of the essential continuity that unites everyone who's walked through these schools, including people who were here before the handprint started. So after this panel, if you haven't done so yet, please walk through the hallway, check out the lounge. If you have a handprint up, find your handprint, but also just kind of look up at all of these hands that represent all the different people who've been through this school. So thank you. Our last panelist is going to be Lili Tiouririne, who is a senior executive president of student council and an utter joy to have in the classroom. Take it away.
So, uni students study procrastination, right? I did not know what I wanted to talk about until I sat here through everyone's presentations. So as a current student, I kind of just wanted to talk about change, right? So everyone here talked about something that has either been added to uni recently or has been important for so many years. And I think my class is the last class that had many of the original things before uni decided to implement their changes, right? So I was the last class that had the normal bell, the old one before our little one that kind of sounds like an airplane bell, as we call it now. And I was the last class to have a full year without the block schedule, because COVID hit the end of my freshman year. And I just think that a lot of this change is really important to me, right? When I first came to uni, I was shocked at all the changes because my brother, Adam, over there, he's in the room, graduated in 2009. And I wanted to go to uni because he told me how amazing his experience was. And my sub year, I got to do all the things that he did. And then all of a sudden, my freshman year, everything starts changing. They're like, block schedule, we're gonna do this, we're gonna add this program. And at the time I was like, no, why are we changing things? Please, no. But now I realize they are so important, right? For the first time, I got to be part of the Pathbreakers program. And when I first heard about it, no clue what it was. I was like, so we just have subbies here a week early, or how is this gonna work? But through being part of that program and also being part of the sub-buddy program, we realized how important it was to have these kids come in and get adjusted to uni. And with the block schedule, at first I was looking at this and I was like, I am not sitting in a classroom for an hour and 25 minutes, listening to a math lecture, listening to a physics lecture. No, thank you. But it's actually been really, really helpful, right? We've got opportunities to do field trips during class. We can walk around campus. We have all the facilities. So block scheduling has been really great. And I think now I can't even imagine doing the anchor days, how we did that 5 days a week all the time. Absolutely not. Love the block schedule. And like I said, through the counseling program, when I first came to uni, I came out of a huge public middle school, had no sense of identity, did not know who I was. And I know some of the teachers are probably gonna laugh when I say this, but as a subby, I could not imagine being where I am now, speaking in front of all these people. No way. I was quite shy compared to now. I still talk to upperclassmen through like the study buddy program and things like that. But I can't imagine being where I am now, and through the SSO, right? Now I just walk in and I'm like, hey, how's your day? It's me again. Yeah, it's so much more than just like a counseling office, and all the staff at uni are so much more than just teachers. And yeah, I mean, uni is just, I'm so thankful to be part of this community, right? You know, I don't have a fancy degree. I haven't been here for many years. It's my 5th year. But yeah, and just all the changes that Dr. Majerus was talking about. I mean, they have been so helpful to the school. And, you know, she talked about some things that I didn't even know were going on, but I think they are so important, right? This community outreach, talking to students at younger ages, I think that's really important. I think, because like I said, I found out about you with my brother, but not everybody has those connections and experiences, so I think that is really important. Yeah, I'm just really happy to be part of the uni community. And honestly, if you ask me some year if I would be here or consider coming back to Champaign-Urbana after I left for college, I'd be like, no, I love uni, I love high school, but no, thank you. But now after being part of this center celebration and just all of the things I've done at uni, at my time here, I think I would definitely come back to all the events, come back and see all of your faces. But yeah, thank you.
So we have some time for a Q&A. I just wanted to say, I will stay beyond 12:30. I'm sorry, 12. I will stay beyond 12 if all these other folks can go. So if you have questions for the other folks, I'm happy to stick around. If you want to stick around longer. But Dr. Radnitzer asked me to remind everybody that there are handprints on the second floor. I also wanted to mention, if you raise your hand if you had Chris Butler as a history teacher. Okay,
Wow.
I want to let you all know that we made extra editions of the pandemic edition of Unique. The editor set here decided that they always have themes for the sections, and they decided to make themes, titles of the songs that Mr. Butler plays during the century class. And I became aware that some students created a Spotify playlist entitled Butler's Box. And looking back, you can get some information about they kind of honored Mr. Butler in the Unique. And if you scan this QR code, it should take you to a Spotify playlist of Butler's Box. So please pick one up. There's copies here. Thank you, and thanks to Mr. Butler for his legacy. There's copies here, but there's also more copies in the building. So we've got lots of these. They'll be able to get one. So if we run out of here, there's more in a box on the first floor.
Oh, hang on, I'll come around with the microphone.
So we have a mic first for folks who have questions. One thing I want to say quick is just all of these folks are rock stars. Thank you so much for being here today. And this is just a sampling of the amazing faculty we have right now. Our faculty is so tremendous, so committed. I feel so lucky to work with such a group of creative, passionate, committed, interesting people who are just put the kids first all the time. So thank you very much to our faculty and staff.
My name is Ted Boone, class of 1977. What languages are currently being offered at uni, perhaps over the past 10 years? How has that changed? And if a student would like to study a language that's not being offered at uni, is there an opportunity to go to the U of I and study it? Thank you.
Sure. Our languages have been pretty consistent in the last 10 years. We have Spanish, French, German, Latin, and Japanese. Those are the languages. Which is quite a challenge for a school of our size. We have a program that we have a way of making it work, but it's not easy to offer. Students can take languages.
We've had kids take Chinese and Portuguese over at the U of I.
Okay, so Megan is traveling around with a mic if she'd like to ask a question. So.
Hi, Sarah Axel, class of 77. Can you tell us when the sub-freshman class stopped being an acceleration class, mostly taking out a 6th grade class? When did that happen? How long?
We do not have, unfortunately, anybody else knows more, at least the union number. Lisa has done it a little longer. You're not aware. We don't, unfortunately, we do not have like a history of the subject class. There's no records of a decision being made. It was a shift over time. And so.
Vaguely? I mean, has it been 10 years?
I started in the fall of 1999, and it wasn't really, most of the students were not contributing. It was probably a blend at that point. Shifted more and more stuff.
So basically, it's been already 25 years.
Yeah,
That the kids have been coming out of the 7th grade
primarily, yeah.
and not skipping a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Ben has some.
I mean, give one data point. I feel like when yeah, that would be my memory, is around the millennium, would have been that 50. And I think there's a what, 10 years has been shifted towards primary. Don't 100% quote me on that, but I feel pretty good about that.
Is it, can you just say, is it because there's less students applying to come out of 6th grade, or because less are being admitted? You know, based on, are the applications of the 7th graders better than?
Yeah, I can't speak to what brought about the 50-50 that things started in 1998, but that's right. Right.
But I mean, even right now, like.
Right, but I would say in the last 10 years, or maybe a little bit more. First of all, there's been a concern about this social maturity, and are we doing 6th graders a service? Like, we were seeing a lot of 6th graders have trouble. So that was part of it. Another part of it is just that once
we're not really focusing on the sixth graders, we have sixth and seventh graders.
One of the most difficult things I think that's collected in school is we're turning kids away. That's hard. Kids who really could succeed. And some of the students that I consider some of my best students I learned later came off of this. I remember at graduation when we were having our former director. We were talking about other. It showed me that student ended up coming off the wait list, and it was astonishing. It was a star. We turned away so many kids who were graduating. So a seventh grader has one shot. A sixth grader has another shot. And a lot of it just truly just comes down. So we want to give the kids who's not, because realistically, once you can't come into the sub-freshman, your odds of getting in as a freshman are far. So I think that was a big part of it, combination of concerns about social security and who would thrive, and also concerns about just getting the sixth graders another shot. Anybody want to say anything else about that shift?
I would only just say that we're sending kids out at 16 to go to college. Is that a great thing?
All of it.
We got to see we're going to get it, but you can't shift into that.
And I think a lot of maybe almost just love going to college. But I do think there's the trend of acceleration being positive in itself is definitely less true.
Can I just add on to that question? When did Urbana and Champaign switch to middle schools?
Yeah, that would have been roughly in the early to mid 1990s.
No.
My sister was in one of the first classes. You're right, it was in the late 80s. Does that sound better?
In Champaign, it was the.
In Champaign, I'm all sorry.
The study thing is gonna be big, right? But there's maybe some other, I don't want to make all these people stay here for a long time. So let's say if you have if you're passionate about the study, you're concerned, I have to talk about it. Let's put those questions off a little bit. And if you have a question for Dr. O'Brien, Dr. Radnitzer, Dr. Leff, Lisa Micele, can we prioritize those questions just so that folks can go off and have a little bit of their Saturday? And I'm happy to take the question beyond that. Megan, you have. Oh, wait,
Hi.
Hi.
Mark, my personal experience with acceleration was when I came out of the union, I wasn't ready. So I bumped out and my that one was on. I found out. Stuff happens like that, so I blessed to be there. I raised my class size.
Well, first of all, thank you for that. We really love to hear the stories, and if you want to. From along with you. I'm happy to speak to sellers. I do think there is still a role for kids to come in earlier. That's the best. Probably the exception from our experience, but class sizes. Most class sizes for core classes tend to be in the low to mid 20s. We have some very small classes, like electives that have, fewer than that. But generally speaking, it's between 20 and 26. Oh, graduating process. What did I say?
Yes.
64. 63. Yeah, so wrong. Okay. So not. But.
Emily Bruce, class of 2003, and welcome back. Thank you, and thanks for showing us this wonderful, unique project. I just have to share that I was contributing to editing Unique when Elizabeth Majerus, who was pregnant with Otis, which means in my head, he's just a permanent infant. And
He's not gonna stop right you about.
So my question is for Lisa, Karl Radnitzer, I think the most, and also for Dr. Majerus. I was thinking about student expression, because Unique has a long history, but I also imagine that new technologies have changed the ways that you're getting to see students self-express. And so is there anything you could say about the arts, about performance, about how students are making stuff in the world and how that might have changed over the last few decades? Thanks.
I mean, some things will be familiar. We have gargoyle, we have musical, we have magical, we have jazz band, I mean, but, yeah, so we have some things where you can see some fundamental continuity, but obviously things have changed. The gargoyle, the online publication. Our yearbook class is absolutely still makes a physical yearbook, also is making videos, that are kind of directly posted to the yearbook page. And certainly, you know, in, Lisa Evans, our teacher, both are done in art. But yes, you know, lots of ways in which, express both in physical and digital media. So, does anyone want to add?
Well, the clubs, if you go to our website, look at the large number of school clubs that we have going on. There's athletics still, we still have a no-cut policy, 80%, 85% of our kids participate in sports. You don't find that anywhere else.
I think it also saves class, there's so much more multimedia projects, and there's a lot of kids are making just great multimedia projects using technology.
I went to the student work class 5.
Yeah.
Can you make,
Class of 85. And I'm just curious, are you seeing the trend away from standardized tests? You know, in some of the graduate programs, there certainly is. And if so, you know, are there other students then, you know, what would take place, or how would students, you know, how would you be handling being able to distinguish themselves?
Are you talking about the admissions process with our SSAT removed, or is it about this general?
Yeah, in general, college admissions.
Yeah, so in college admissions, again, there were over 800 colleges already test optional even prior to the pandemic. So that was a movement that was already happening. And I think now with test optional and the fact that there are deans and directors of enrollment management who know that they are picking vibrant freshmen without that data point. What again is happening is there's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot of faculty and senates and donors who have to also make that decision. So some colleges are pivoting back to testing, especially there were states like Florida, even during the pandemic, you could not apply to public universities in Florida without a test. So they never dropped testing. So I do think that overall, when I am still engaging with admissions, especially the world of Zoom is here to stay. I'm thinking of Dr. Hedman. He would remember the times I got to leave and go up to Oak Brook and Deerfield just for a breakfast meeting. Now I can do those on Zoom, because I have more access to college information than ever before as a counselor without having to drive to Chicago and St. Louis and Indy. So I do think overall they would love to see them go. Professor Kendi, who is now at BU and wrote the book How to Be an Anti-Racist, basically said testing is the most racist tool in admissions. It has kept Black and brown kids out of colleges forever. But I also think that there are families and students who don't understand how are they going to differentiate from about, you know, admissions decisions without that score. The reality is we have to talk more with our students about what does it mean to have a purpose and a why and an impact. I think still we have a tendency of high achieving kids with high stakes to want to be human doers and not human beings. It's that resonating. It's that sometimes I'm doing something cool, but I may not want to tell my peers if they do it, it won't be good. And I think we have to help our kids understand that collaboration and that critical thinking and working together. When they read you for college admissions, it is, can you be a vibrant community member? And our community here is important to us, so we have to see that they kind of take those skills and even put that into the college admissions portfolio. That they think about, it's not about, I always say to students, not one dean of admissions runs into their colleague's thing and says, oh my God, let's talk about this 1580 on SAT. That is the least interesting thing about the kid, right? They care so much more about all the other parts of their life, especially if they have responsibilities at home, or they're taking care of a younger sibling, or they have a job. So when I was able to be on NPR with Jeremy Hobson, he was interviewing me. And I was explaining even then, right? Like whatever happened to the high school kid just having a job, right? College admissions loves the kid who works at Dairy Queen. Well, Dairy Queen tweeted that out. I never got one. Listen. Like Lisa Maselli says, get a job at Dairy Queen. And then sometimes the parts that are interesting about them are just the things that bring them joy and how they choose to spend their time when no one's watching.
We are over time, and again, I'm not gonna stay and talk to all of you, but if you're like, wanting to step or you need to step and break, and so, and also, people here, you can all leave now. Thank you. I just want to create a moment to let people do their work. Happy job.
Thanks so much. My name is Sarah Moore, class of 19. Lisa Micele, I used to pleasure movie. I used to like say second. Not having. So thank you. And I love your Facebook posts too. I have a kid who's a senior in high school at a large public school, and they are trying to go towards a block schedule, which has been largely, in my understanding, teachers have led this initiative, and there is a lot of resistance from parents and students. So curious in part about how that's gone for you. And also you have 8 periods, which I sort of forgot. My kid's school has 6. Is it that PE is still a required course? Yes. And what else do kids really take 8 periods?
Not, most kids don't, but some kids do. And we can more about that. Dr. Radnitzer was in the block schedule, but I will just say one thing about the block schedule. I think one thing is helpful for us. We did have a lot of, even from the teachers. Now, some teachers really, we lost a few minutes. And I think one thing about the block schedule is you can add up the number of minutes, but as Karl was saying, you're in the room, write your stuff out, get focused. Like, you can't necessarily measure and make just. Obviously, time is important, but that's not the only thing going on. So there's something you can do in 85 minutes. You can't necessarily do in 90 minutes. But I think the most useful thing that we did was we had a 2-year trial. And that was just, the fact that it was a trial, we're not shoving this down anybody's throat. Try it, we're going to input, to look at it, made it very helpful, and really made it more possible for us to move forward and present, rather than just changing it.
So the 2-year trial's not out, by the way. But I think there are a lot of terrible things that happened in COVID when we went remote, and we went remote 2 years ago. And this was a blessing, because instead of having our kids sit through 8 periods of classes when they're at home, we went into a kind of a modified block. So for example, on Monday, they have a class for an hour, 15-minute break, and they have another class for an hour. And this is all online now. Then we give them an hour lunch. Then they come back for another hour, 15-minute break, an hour. And that was it. Their day was done by 2:30. They were done. So I thought that was a real blessing, because it gave everyone the opportunity just to experience a little bit what block was like. Myself and my wife, we do foster care, and we had 2 foster children that year, and I was watching a middle school kid having online courses for 20 minutes and then going on, and I don't think much was done that year. So I think it's also a little bit like a college schedule, and I don't mean to be critical. I am a teacher. I still consider myself a teacher, even when I'm in administration, but change is hard. Change is hard. It's hard to change what you're used to doing in the classroom to make this tweak. So I really tip my hat off to not only the faculty that made some major changes when we were doing remote, but they've also done some major changes and some people have really taken off and off with it. So, and maybe some of the fact is we're a smaller school, it's a little easier to do some changes. And let's remember, we're a lab school. We should be thinking about doing changes.
I'll just briefly say, I'm a teacher who from the beginning, when this came up, was like kind of on the fence. I see benefits of the 8-period day, benefits of the block schedule, but I wanted to try something, right? Like see what it's like. And one of the things I would say is this is only effective if teachers teach in a way that makes sense. Because if you do the same thing you would for a smaller length of time, it can become quite tedious. And so you really have to think about like variation within your period, and that's like our task of teachers figuring out the right way to do it. The other thing I'll say is in terms of resistance, or is I admit being surprised. What I expected was the students to be very upset, and maybe over time it would change. We did our first like temperature check survey, and already within, I forget, it was a month and a half, strong majority of students preferred it to the old system, which I was not expecting. And certainly, to be clear, there are no faculty prefer going back to the quote unquote traditional model. But actually, I think once they got into it, I anecdotally talked to some who literally told me that they came into it not wanting to do it and then realized they actually preferred it. So that may well happen in transition to happen.
The last thing I'll say quickly about the block schedule is if we had just done it and not done a lot of support and conversation about how do we change, offered some professional development and some opportunities for teachers to seek out professional development, I think it would not have been successful. We also really emphasize the break and not being tempted to break. So we have kids in the hallway in the middle of the block schedule. And my reminder to do something about it. Yeah, so I think that was really important. I think we have to do that. Like, the break shouldn't be like, we're discussing. Now I'm a student sitting here on the phone and like, get up, move around.
But remember I talked about Steve Rayburn's freshman letter that they talk about admissions being stressful. So I have a role in freshman health now. So during the class, we always take a break. Anytime I teach mindfulness, right? We might do something. I took the freshmen into the lounge. What? Because when I started in 93, it was a 9 to 12 lounge. That's how it was. Well, it's not. It's more now junior and senior because there's chairs on all the other floors. There's space to move, right? The school's bigger. You would have thought I committed a federal crime. Walking these freshmen into the lounge. That is now going to be my health break. They get to play foosball, and I get to stand there and say to the seniors, I'm a faculty member. So I literally started a hashtag that said open the lounge. Was not good.
Thank you. So I just want to say, I sort of asked people to put out 7-year questions to the end. So let them get off.
So this isn't a sub-year question.
Yes.
Personally, I'm a person that gave. And I had a question actually related to the diversity and inclusion aspects and the social emotional learning efforts in relation to something that happened when I was there, which is the AP class trends. Which is something that some people do, some people don't do. It's how you're
Yeah, so we are very mindful of the ways that the AP courses can be an equity issue. There is an AP club that started at uni to help support students as they're studying for AP tests. There's open up opportunities to prepare. I also recently had a conversation with the executive teacher in math about policies related to skipping math classes because of summer Parkland classes. So we're considering the ways that taking classes at Parkland give certain students access to an accelerated curriculum at uni that isn't necessarily beneficial for these the summer classes. Consolidate the whole semester of material, but also that leave behind students who don't have financial resources in their households to allow them to review. So it's a conversation that I'm a part of with faculty, SSO. And right now, we haven't taken like any sort of school-wide position, but we are trying to provide the academic supports and the financial supports where we can for students who want to make the choice that feels right for them, whether it's taking a class at Parkland, whether it's taking a class at U of I, for which they might need additional academic support, or whether it's enrolling for Lisa.
I was just gonna share, we spend a lot of time counseling students and families about what it means and why a student might want a college course as a young high school student. Our fear is, I think, again, instead of them using the community as a place to engage, they now see if I take a U of I course, I look more competitive for admissions. And we are pushing back on that all the time. Because the colleges honestly just want to see, are you using the resources in your backyard? Because then if you go off to Johns Hopkins, you'll probably use the resources in their backyards. It's predicting potential. But I do think I'm starting to see this belief system that in order for me to look stronger for admissions, I have to get out of the uni bubble and I have to use U of I have to use those courses. And they start permanent transfers. So the kids who literally then start crumbling because they assume because they're at uni, they're going to keep an A at U of I and have a 4.0, the minute they get a B or a C, they drop the course. And so we're trying to help the kids understand the college courses and the options to go there was because there was something limiting you. You had such a desire and a fire that we knew we didn't want to limit you with our small building and curriculum. My fear is for social and emotional learning is they're defining that as I will look stronger if I go to those classes. So we're constantly trying to ask them, what's your motivation? What's your purpose? To understand that if you take that college course, there's going to be a project due where everyone else in class gets to sleep till noon because they're college kids. You're going to be up at uni there at 8 o'clock and then try to do a project at night. You're marrying two worlds. So we're really trying to help them understand what the consequences of that choice.
How many kids now take it?
No, well, I unfortunately, I don't know the data.
Okay, that's my guess.
You kind of touched on. But I'd like you to. What does that picture look like? Instead of being the 62.
You know, I have no trouble. You have to hold the microphone.
From the top. Lisa, you unpacked the question a bit for me earlier. I'd like to see you unpack on what you said earlier about what does a picture of being a fly-oriented successful look like? And for you, what are some of those indicators that say that model is working? What say that model is succeeding you?
Did you ask about intent?
Yes.
Intention. So I'm a big advocate of Brene Brown, the one that's called the social worker Brene Brown from Houston. And again, I feel like vulnerability, that the whole foundation of trust, right? The whole reason of what's your purpose, what's your why. And I think again, even the whole concept of the life design work that's so much of that, I think has to be put now, which seems weird. Did I worry about that when I was applying to college, right? That someone would really want me to go deep and express my purpose. How are you leaving uni a better place? Because when you apply to these colleges, especially if you want the highest tier, they're reading you from a very selfish business model also. How are you going to make us a better place? So I think those conversations are becoming where I constantly try to help students understand you're making a choice to be dissected next. And some students aren't ready to do that. But otherwise, you have to be prepared that if you are going to have a college at a very low acceptance rate, be able to cherry pick who they want in their community. You apply to MIT, you have to upload research. You have to upload your abstract. There are kids, again, these are kids without their frontal lobe fully developed. So the admissions process is honestly not in alignment with their development. It's just not. So trust me, I go to national conferences for our national association and There are school psychologists now that are talking about how the admissions process, getting to the point where it's at, is not in alignment with what these kids are able to give. And I think some of the questions they ask in their admissions applications, if I put one of you on the spot and asked it, you'd be like, whoa. And sometimes they're asked those in an interview. So I see that becoming something where I'm constantly trying to ask the student, okay, you just listed you're on student council 4 years. How are you leaving student council a better place? And oftentimes it's a deer in headlights. Because they're repeating the same traditions and just doing the same motions. And when you apply to those schools that are admitting less than 20%, you have to also say, what was your legacy? How did you leave something better? And sometimes the busyness of life just has them repeating the same stuff. Trust me, it's a cycle that I just feel like I apologize to students to say, I'm sorry, this is the way it is. But you also have a choice to not apply to those schools. Does that make sense? Like, I have to keep reminding them, let's celebrate the fact that applying to college is a privilege. The fact that it's become this heavy doldrum of stress and anxiety. I mean, I literally have empathy fatigue from college admissions.
Okay, so we're gonna take 3 more questions. It is, but I think you're gonna have to speak up another close enough.
I wanted to go back to your point of curricular innovation. Noel Sound, her class of 69. And for those of us in the room in the 50s, 60s, maybe the early 70s, of course, it was a lab school at the time, and you know, we knew math, knew science, knew English, and so on. And the idea was that whatever was successful, they would try to scale up. I think most of it wasn't so successful in those days. But my question is, in terms of the curricular innovations that you're working on now, are there plans to scale up? And what innovations have been successful, or what do you think is promising in the next, say, 5 to 10?
That's a great question. I think, the shift in film, there's still a lot of different ways that lab mission gets disseminated, and some of it's very true. Publishing a paper, giving a presentation, writing a book. An example that I have in my own recent experience, the English department published a book in 2016 that started as a conference panel presentation, and then we ended up putting together a book. Francis Garrett, who is until recently our librarian was part of it, the teachers were part of it. And it was, we put that out into the world, and we saw how teachers and librarians use that book, and that was great. But I think we have also engagement. It's much more. So rather than scaling up, I think we're reaching out. And so a lot of our lab mission is connecting with local schools, doing projects with local schools, providing some of the local schools some things that we can do because we have the freedom to innovate and create small local projects, and their teachers can get involved with the benefit of the freedom and use it within there are some constraints, but they also have spaces for freedom. We can collaborate with it. Valerie can say more about that. The idea of really reaching out and being part of our community, teachers, collaborating, and partnership. So we still do we have scholars on our faculty who are publishing papers, have their research going up on the Newberry Library website, and other places where other teachers can access those, and back to other scholarship. But I think engagement is a bigger role. Valerie, do you want to say more?
Sure, yeah, so I can provide one example of the sort of outreach model that Elizabeth was describing. We've been working with teachers and students at Robert T. Washington STEM Academy, which is just 6 blocks or so north of Lincoln. And the teachers there have been thrilled to have uni students coming in labs because their teaching model has one teacher and an aide in a classroom of 20 or so students. When we know what their curriculum is focusing on, and our students can design an activity for 30 or 40 minutes to read with the students that connects to what the teacher is doing in their class already, then our students are able to pair up with one student or 2 students and really offer like hands-on engaged instruction that focuses on every student, which just isn't possible with one teacher in the classroom. So it's been a wonderful partnership that we've started growing this year. One of our math teachers is very excited about developing a quarterly project that brings her classes during block periods into BTW classrooms to lead this sort of collaborative hands-on learning.
The other thing I'll just follow up. Now that you have a clear professional development, so like we're also gonna have a lot of coherent messaging outward about. So the things that we are scaling out and up will be wider audience. And even reaching within a building, we've had a tradition that people doing amazing things and then do. And so you hope we're not about whether we're also impressed with our values. We've been working away, doing amazing things in our own little style world, we don't see it. So I think having somebody connect out to the community and along with that. I really want that to be on part of a role like the role Valerie has, coordinator, and the coordinator, but whoever the administrator is, whether it's John Henry or me or other any of you know, whatever that person's name is and their vision, there will be things that roles that sustain these important projects. I think it's something that has happened in uni too often. Always amazing things going on, but it's very easy for something to fire out when someone retires. And really need that continuity to reach our full potential. I think the big part of it. We have time for two more questions. We have.
And I'll be honest, I can comment more so than a question. And not necessarily to revisit the study thing, but the other thing I wanted to comment, I'm Rika, 89, parents of 2014 and 2016. And I just want to say that uni is not an island, and I actually love hearing some of the outreach and increasing that it's doing in the community. And so those changes in terms of the mostly the study class being mostly 7th graders versus 6th graders. And one of the things that Sue Kovacs, who was here for a while, whose daughter was in my class, and would say is that, you know, the community around me changed a lot. It grew a lot in terms of the kids coming through the schools and potentially looking for or needing a place like community. And it also changed a lot in that in the year 83, there was maybe like Holy Cross and maybe like one other parochial school or something as alternatives. So for kids that needed something more, needed enrichment, needed other alternatives that weren't targeted. Now there are a number of other options in the community. So it's not like after 6th grade or on the 6th grader that they have to suffer, you know, through another year in a or the private school that they may already have. There are a lot of other options and alternatives out there now in Champaign for how kids can still get accommodated, you know, in the ways that they need to continue to develop. So I think that's the idea.
That's very important. Yeah, next generation side and Academy High are free private schools that did not exist 30 years ago. And that has changed a lot.
So I think everyone in the front knows who I am, but I'm Ryan. I'm currently a uni student, but I think that, well, I want to say that I'm a skippy. I was someone who applied to uni in 6th grade and got in. And I think, to be honest, I can't really imagine myself at any other school. So I really love uni and appreciate everything about that. But also I think I'm very, very passionate about things that I could do, things that other people would want to do at uni. So I'm just wondering if there's any plans or any ideas of like kind of direct student to administration communication where we can like talk about things that we don't like or things that we might want to be seen implemented, or I don't know, just something like that.
That's a great question. Well, for one thing, I think using the groups that we already have, staff, you know, student staff of the library, that's a great place to come to, even if you don't want to join staff, get on the agenda at staff. So that's really us students and faculty, in the group, and that's a place to get ready for that. You're also always welcome to get in touch with Dr. Radnitzer. And drop by and see us and I'll talk to us. But student council is another place, where you can correct that thing. So, so if you have an idea also for another kind of mode that we could create, we're always looking for ways to do it. So let us know. Great question. Okay, I think that's the end of our time for questions. I would be happy to talk to people about questions or thoughts. But we did want to wrap it up so that folks want to come chat with me. I'm still here for a bit.
Thank you.